All right, it is 2 minutes gone past seven, and it's time for us to get into total football. And this, as always, you know that you can be a part of total football this evening by sending in your thoughts via WhatsApp on 009 444 So that's 0809 444 on WhatsApp. However, if you also want to call in and share your thoughts this evening, you can do that on 0201 4489981. And I've got Yubby virtually though. Hello, Yubby. How's your day been?
Hi Joe, how's it going? Day's very
Very
good.
well, thank you.
I hear it's been raining cats and dogs, so I can imagine that,
Yeah. One minute
movement is
it's
restricted.
shining, and then the next minute you're like, wait, what happened? I thought
Yeah,
we had asked the rain to just pause, but no, the rain
nah.
has a mind of its own, so it comes when it comes.
Yeah, pretty much. I think I always say that you enjoy the rain when it comes and you enjoy the sunshine when it's there as well. So that's pretty okay. I just hope that the mechanics don't make too much money because I
That
see all
one we
the
cannot
I
we
see all
cannot
the I see
even
all the cars and
escape.
all the water. It's just ridiculous. So, yeah. Yeah, but it's good to be here. I think we've got lots to talk about today, actually. The rest day in the Euros is always a nice reprieve. So I think we can take a time to look back at all that's happened so far. Take stock of some of the teams that we've seen their performances, and we can also interact with the listeners as well.
Right. That's
Mm.
actually important for us to also have their thoughts on how the Euros have gone so far. But before we get into all that, I also have a guest joining us as well, Adedotun Olusanya. He is a sports lawyer and a legal expert. Good evening and good to have you on Total Football this evening.
Thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure being a guest here today. Thank you.
Mm. Mm. I'm sure that your axis is looking good because no sign of
You can always tell.
any.
You can always tell
See,
when
I don't want to even say
diaspora
much.
people diaspora people always brag differently. So you can see it's just cool. It's just like it can't relate.
It co-
No, I can't. Come on.
Are you sure that? Okay, I'm just going to let you be for now. But talking about the rest day, it's always great when they can have a breather. But it also is that time where we also get to speak about their performances. And I think we should actually start with the host nation, Germany. What has been your take so far, UB?
No, I think Germany have been really. I think Germany have been steady. There's a old the proverbial, German machine term, and if you're a football fan
Mm.
who grew up watching football, that term was used a lot growing up. The German machines, and
Sure.
it's something we became accustomed to. So if you're a millennial, you always went to major tournaments thinking that Germany would just get the business done. It was the minimum requirements was quarterfinal. You know, that was your German machine for you. But the
Mm.
last two or three international tournaments have really been like a time to wake up call, pretty much, if you like, for Germany.
Okay.
And as a result, the standards have sort of dropped. But I sense that there's a really good atmosphere around the team now, especially with the Tony Cruz last dance and all that positivity. He's come back into the national team for one last dance. They have a manager now who's very
Hands
young
on.
manager, Nagelsmann, and I think that they just use that to their advantage. They're not flying by any means. They're not
Hmm.
blowing teams away, but what they're doing is they're just steady and doing what we used to know them for, just being ruthless and being efficient. And I think that amongst the best teams, your Spain's, your England's, your
Yeah.
Belgium's, and France, I think they've been the ones that have acquitted themselves very well with the task. And in many ways, the home crowd always helps. But in the end, the 11 players have got to go and then and do the job. So I've been impressed with them. But of course, the next steps are now, where you really start to really find out, how ready teams are, because now you don't get to play the luxury of three games anymore. You've got just that one game to
One game
make
to
it count.
get to
And,
the.
so I like the fact that Germany have book their place, and of course, we'll see how they progress from there. But yeah, they've been slow and steady.
Mm. All right.
Yeah.
Slow and steady, as they say, wins the race.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
I'm surprised by Germany, to be honest. Not, of course, I agree with Yubby totally. They have that tournament pedigree coming into every tournament. They seem to just switch it on at the right time and they get it going. So they just have that tournament knack around them. But coming to this tournament, there was a lot of bad vibes, and the German public basically wrote them off. They were not
Okay.
expecting anything from them, especially coming from the last World Cup, where they left a relatively easy group. And now the first game shocked everyone. They lost a couple of friendlies
Mm-hmm.
before the tournament, but the tournament came and they really, I think, relatively steady, like Yubby said. It's just England that caught everyone a bit unawares because everyone thought, oh, this is the tournament. Football is always coming back home for them, and all of us they're struggling, seriously struggling.
Are
But
you
it's
throwing shade?
yeah, sometimes it tells you how expectations sometimes can be too much on a team. That team, they've been steady over the years,
Yeah.
but
Okay.
all of a sudden this is expected to be the crescendo for them to go ahead to win it. But they are not. They top the group at the end of the day, but most
Mm.
English are disappointed about the fluidity and how they've gone on about it. And I'm sure a lot of English fans are relieved at this point that they are going to be playing Slovakia instead of
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Netherlands. There were a lot of punditry going around that, and I knew a lot of them were not too happy. But when they got Slovakia, we'll wait to see whether that's a good one or not at the end of the day.
All right. Well,
Actually,
Jet, go
just to
ahead.
come
Go
in,
ahead.
what's saying? I know we have a break in about a minute, but I do think that England have
Mm-hmm.
been have been a bit arrogant in their approach, and I think that
Exactly.
it's high time. Yeah, it's high time they say that again.
I said totally. I agree with you.
Yeah, yeah, totally arrogant. And I think that you've got to always realize that in tournaments, it's
Okay.
not about the quality of the squad. It's about the teams that can perform greater than the sum of its parts.
Hmm.
Exactly.
And I've always felt that England are constantly looking to, the individual quality. And that's not
All
football.
right.
It's funny because as a football fan, I'm here in Nigeria, Lagos, and I'm thinking about the the amount of times it would take them to learn this lesson. Because every time they go into tournaments, they speak about Foden, we've got Bellingham, we've got Saka. They think
Exactly.
about those players from the club perspective. But the
Indeed.
German team, the Spanish teams think about those players from a national team perspective. Which players work? So you can see a player like Pau Torres, scoring goals for Spain and one of the star men in the team. They're not thinking about what he does for Barcelona or what he does for his team there, but how
Mhm.
can you perform well in the national team? That's the most important thing when they pick those players. So
How
if you
does
don't compliment, yeah,
yes.
if you don't compliment this player, then you might not just
Then,
be the right fit for the national team. So that's pretty much how it is. And I know that England are quality stacked. Foden, Bellingham,
all
Kane,
right.
Watkins. Oh, I mean, this is a superstar team, but
Holy Watkins.
ultimately,
Mm.
yeah, ultimately those players don't quite complement each other. And I find that, if you go back to the era where you had Michael Carrick, never got picked in the team. They kept trying to
Wondering,
shoehorn Steven Gerrard, Lampard, and all they needed was that Carrick type player to just give them that link between midfield
nudge.
and attack. And they
Mm.
couldn't quite do it. And the
Yeah.
same thing with Bellingham as well, right? Bellingham is a great player, but he's
True.
never really going to be your Andrea Pirlo or your
Yeah.
Paul Scholes. But you've got a
Mm.
young Kobe Mainoo on the bench who's got that quality. But they're
Mhm.
playing the names instead of the
The
quality and the
quality.
complementary factor of the player. So
All right.
I mean, we'll see. I mean, in the end, right? They made it out of their group. That's what the coach would say. And ultimately, as you're in the tournament, you still have a chance to win. And like Sonia mentioned, Slovakia are really they're not a high flying team, but I like teams that are steady because they can
Yeah.
surprise you. They can be
Mm.
dogged. And when you look at the brackets which England are currently in, beat
Hmm.
Slovakia. and you play the winner of Switzerland or Italy, I think for all intents and purposes, that's not a
Hmm.
bad, it's not a bad, draw to be in.
Sure for them. Hmm.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we'll get so much more of your thoughts after what, and I definitely want to know what it is that Jerry has to say because Jerry has also sent in his thoughts as well. But we'll take all that. Let's take this quick breather on the other side. We'll definitely continue the conversation. Don't go nowhere. Lagos State into Smooth 98.1.
Okay, Joy, great. Well done. So a nice one. So, what we can do when we come back
Mm,
is, I think we're going to take a look at let's take a look at Italy as well. You know, that bracket. Let's get that in England bracket. So, obviously, England plays Slovakia. Of course, we'll
mm,
take a look at Switzerland and Italy as well. That would
Okay.
allow us to predict that particular draw. Then we
All
move on
right.
to the next one, which is Romania, Netherlands, and Austria, Turkey. I think that's the most balanced. I think
yeah,
England are
Uh,
very lucky in this tournament because the other side
yeah.
is wicked.
They were they were feeling jittery already.
all right,
Netherlands,
guys.
man.
I need to go up. Okay. All right, 14 minutes gone past seven. And yes, you're tuned in to Total Football on Smooth 98.1. And I still have Yubby with me as well as, yes, our special guest this evening, Adedotun Olusanya. Well, for the ins you know what, before before I get back to you, let's quickly take what Jerry says. Jerry says, good evening. The Euros have been interesting so far. However, Georgia has performed well. Italy
Yeah.
versus Croatia was a bomb.
Hmm.
The game was indeed fantastic from start to the end. I enjoyed the match. Aisha Tilola comes in and says, Yubby couldn't have said it any better. England are just too arrogant. Hmm. For a team that won just a trophy, the World Cup, the World Cup in the 60s and yet to win the Euros in their whole lifetime. They feel they are all that and the next best thing after sliced bread and ever going. Well, she used to give bread and they were going, but yeah, sliced bread and they were going. But they have the stars, so they have to brag. But well, we see where they
But
are
I've got to
anyway.
ask, I've got to ask, Sonia, if you were to
Yes.
make a call, I personally think that England would, find the extra gear to get over Slovakia, but I would not
Hmm.
be surprised if they didn't, right? So, because in the end, it's about people wanting to progress and what works on the day. But
Yes.
I think they would do it if they get past Slovakia. I really do think it will be the last, as they say in Nigeria, the last bus stop for them because I don't know that they can overcome Italy with the. I think Italy showed. I think that draw against Croatia shows something. But I don't know what you think about that. Do you think that England can overcome Slovakia? So yeah.
Um, to be honest, England, if they can get that mix right of maybe Meno starting and he announces himself on the Euros big time,
Mm-hmm.
maybe they can get over them. There is a chance, but I won't say it's certain. I say this with the Greek team in mind. The Greek team in 2004, they came
Mm-hmm.
in, no one was expecting anything from them, and they will score a goal, defend 0-0. They got through 4.5 points, and they went
Mm-hmm.
ahead to win the tournament against Portugal, the host nation. So maybe Slovakia may not be that talented, but it's been shown that in tournaments, what you need is unity of purpose. You need teams
Okay.
to
Yeah.
grind for each other, and anything can happen. But if Slovakia beats England, it won't be the end of the world. Iceland did it before, if we remember,
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
of less than 300,000 people that know themselves. So it's possible. Personally,
Okay.
I used to support England as a kid. I supported them a lot.
Okay.
1996 was their greatest tournament ever in my opinion. Paul Gascoigne and some fantastic players. After then, they've
But
not been been able to play together as a team in any major tournament.
mm,
Um, Then going to Italy traditionally always starts slow. Every tournament, they
Hmm.
get through 4 points, and once they get to that quarterfinal, second round stage, it's like a shark
That's
that
when they
smells.
come.
Yeah, it's like shark that smells blood. They know what to do. They know when to attack. They know when to defend. They score you, forget the game. So Italy, yeah. So I think I really agree with you. If England at some point comes against Italy, that may be the end of the road for them. But maybe they would surprise us. So anything can happen. But I'm not expecting a lot from them.
You're forgetting that this is football. I'm sure you saw what happened to Portugal. Like the
Yeah.
you
I mean,
you
yeah,
you
exactly. Like
But
exactly. Like Portugal, like if Portugal could lose, I think that, England, honestly, if they played the Netherlands, I think it would have been that would have been the end of the road for the tournament. I really do.
that was
Because
the
they have been Holland have been unlucky. I think that a few calls, didn't go their way. I think the call to cancel Xavi Simon's goal was a bit,
the one
had,
that did them in.
a bit, yeah, but ultimately I think that we'll see how that goes. Let's take a look, Sonia, we've spoken about Italy briefly, obviously, and I think we have the same perspective as far as Italy's tournament experience and know-how. So
Mm-hmm.
that allows us to pick up the pace and go to another, a couple of teams, Netherlands, who are an interesting proposition because I've always felt like Netherlands never feel like they're, in a great place going to a tournament. I don't remember a tournament where Netherlands have gone into thinking we're absolutely going to go there and win. But then we
Mm.
see the footballing principles, show itself, right? They're not high flyers, but they've got a really good team. What do you make of Netherlands, Sonia?
For Netherlands, honestly, I think it's mentality. It's mentality. They don't have the same mentality that the Italians have, that the Germans have, because it's not as if they don't have the talent. They do, but they just have this mental block that once we get to the semifinal, it's okay. Cast your mind back. They're good
True.
participants. They go all the way to semifinals of most tournaments, World
Yeah.
Cups, Euros. They do it. And Spain used to have this problem. Spain, I remember they would have a fantastic squad. The same problem England is having right now. Fantastic squad, but they get to major tournaments and they don't go past second round quarterfinals. But everything changed, I think, with the Euros in 2008. Then they
Mm-hmm.
went the World Cup, and since then they've been relatively stable. And France. So for Netherlands, it's about that mental toughness. The Dutch, they love to enjoy. They don't take life very difficult. They
Very
just love.
difficult.
Yeah. So as far as they're concerned, they're a small country. They believe they're doing things
Punching above
above.
their weight. Yeah.
Sorry. Yeah, they
Punching
believe
above their weight. Yeah.
they believe they're doing things above their weight, but the truth is their footballing concept from the great guy that was in that was in
You're
that
correct.
Cruyff is giving them a very solid mentality that they have a lot of talent compared to most European countries. So I believe they have that talent to actually win, but the mentality is missing. That is what I
Hmm.
Do you think they'll go past Romania? Romania have been another interesting proposition as well.
ah, football, anything can happen. If the Dutch turns it on, they should go past
All
Romania.
the way.
If the
Yeah.
Romanian, I won't say it's impossible. They have a very good team also, and they are punching above their weight.
Yeah, it's interesting because Romania actually made it out of Group E as group winners, which is very
Interesting.
interesting. Uh,
Mm.
had Belgium, Slovakia, and Ukraine, and it's the first time in the tournament, in Euros history where a team has 4 points and still exits the tournament, which is just tells you how incredible this Euros has been. We've actually, it's not been. I don't think it's been crazy. It's been really tough. And I don't know if you agree with Kylian Mbappe. Something I wanted to ask you as well before we
Mm-hmm.
head into your real area of expertise. The legal side of the conversation. Do
Mm.
you do you buy the arguments or the debates that Euros is tougher to win than the World Cup? I think it's a bit what's the word I'm looking for?
I
It's
think
it's
it's a
highly subjective and it's
yes.
I don't know. What do you make of
I
it?
think it's a bit of arrogance from the Europeans because I've heard this before. I remember the great Italian coach Trapattoni. He said, "Oh, other than Italy and Argentina, which other team is in the World Cup for Europeans to play?" I was shocked when I heard that.
That's pure arrogance.
Yeah. So but recently maybe Uruguay has come up and everything. But I don't honestly do not think I've been watching the Copa America here and the level of football is very high. And so maybe what Europeans just have going for them is the fact that they have that base of most of the World Cups are played in Europe. So you have a lot of supporters, and supporters they do a lot in a tournament. Remember when South Korea hosted in 2002? They went as far as the semifinals. So
Yeah.
the 11th, the 12th man factor is a huge one. So I think they should take a chill pill. Clearly, it's their game, their leaders and everything,
Mm-hmm.
but I do not necessarily think that the Euros is harder than all the major tournaments. Though of course it's
Honestly,
a
I think that's a brilliant point. Actually, I think it's a really good point. The fact they've hosted lots of this tournament means you've got more tournament experience, and I
Mm-hmm.
also do think that the geographical factor comes in as well. The ease of travel. To play tournaments in Africa and South America is not easy. And
You
in
as
have to
Asia as well.
travel. Indeed.
Um,
That's
Traveling, in Europe
and they
is
also
just
the
is
weather as well is something that
yeah,
also,
and
that's
go
an
from
advantage to them.
London
yeah,
to
yeah. I mean, you
Paris.
could go from Germany
So
to Paris in what, in less than an
Is
hour, something like
yeah,
that.
so that's it.
Yeah,
They have that flexibility and ease of travel, and I mean a lot of European countries is like Lagos to Oyo State and all of
yeah.
that.
Totally agree
We
with you. Totally agree with you.
uh,
I'm looking forward to seeing how the 2026 World Cup plays out. Let's pick up the pace now, Sonia. And
before we get into that, let's just
right.
take a few messages here. Chibuzo comes through and says, I think England is stuck in safe mode, but for all the criticism in the last three tournaments, they've done a final, semi, and quarter. So I think we should actually give them a break, cut them some slack. All right. Aisha Atilola says Copa America is the worst tournament for me this year. Uh, I see you laughing, Sonia. She says they make it look like it's the UFC than football games. The AFCON this year is by far better for me. And well, Wilson comes in and says, well, for the Euro 2024 round of 16 fixtures, they are mouth watering. If he's allowed to make predictions, he's certain that Portugal will win or would defeat Slovenia. Portugal lost to Georgia yesterday, owing to the fact that they were already disqualified. He says Spain will defeat Georgia, Netherlands will get the better of Romania, and also Austria will conquer Turkey. Croatia versus Italy was a bomb, and that equalizing goal was actually breathtaking. Football is such a beautiful game. All right, thank you so much. Don't forget that you can actually share your thoughts on WhatsApp or 009 You can actually call as well if if you want to share your insight as well on total football this evening on 0201 4489981, and we'll take your calls and comments as they come through. All right, Yubby, let's get into this.
I just wanted to a quick reminder of what the fixtures look like at the moment.
Okay.
Switzerland, Italy, England, Slovakia. There's Romania taking on Netherlands as well. Austria take on Turkey, and this is interesting. So I don't know
yeah,
if you find this
Austria.
amusing. Every time we
Yeah.
come to tournaments like this, right, you realize some teams, and this makes me really not really sad, but it just reminds me of the power of forward planning and thinking about things, tournaments, 2 years, 4 years before it actually happens.
Actually
And
happens.
I relate that back to Nigerian football and the NFF and how we cannot quite sort our football out, right? When Austria, hired Ralph Ragnick, right?
Yeah.
it looked like he was going away from the center of attraction, Manchester
They're
United
playing
going to
anybody.
oblivion. But,
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
they've been building that project for the last 2 years, right?
Mm-hmm.
They've been improving the team, they've been
Mm-hmm.
getting their routines in, and they had an eye. And I think I go back to the press conference where he was unveiled. They actually spoke about the Euro 2024 as
Mm-hmm.
the target, to
So
show
we're looking forward
the
to.
progress they've made as a country. Don't
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
forget, they as a country they have it's not the biggest country in the world, but
Mm-mm.
they've got a nice core of talent across European football, and they've
Mm-hmm.
decided to make the most of that. So they got a manager who might not be your Pep Guardiola or Mourinho, but he
Mm-hmm.
has a proven track record in working with young football players. So are you surprised to see that Austria are doing what they've done? We saw a very good performance against the Netherlands.
I'm not surprised, to be honest, because like you rightly said, that's where planning comes into place. When you hear Ralph Ragnick talk a lot, especially when he was at Manchester United and before he came to Manchester United, you would see that this man is an educator. He wants to teach, he wants to groom players in the same mode as Van Gaal. They need time to build a team. And
Mm.
when he left, and he got the Austrian job, it was clear that he knew most of the Austrian players. A lot of them they play in Germany and across Europe, like you rightly said. And he knew what he wanted. He knew the style he wanted to play. He knew it was a pressing game, and he found players to fit in that mode. A very good example: the guy that was in Manchester United. I've forgotten his name.
Sabitzer.
Yes, Sabitzer. He had a bad injury from Germany, leaving Dortmund to come to United. Had some couple of good performances, but you can see how is the linchpin of this team, how he carries the weight of the team and other players that play across Europe. So it's just about define the style you want to play. Get the players that fit into that mode and grind them together as much as possible. So that
Mm.
planning 2 year forward was necessary. The good thing for them was they had the players. They just needed
Yes,
the person to put the team together. So I'm not
yes.
totally.
And why I said it made me sad is because we have the players here in Nigeria, what we're lacking is a system that can make those players, perform almost seamlessly. And I watched the Olympics. Obviously, is coming up in a couple of weeks time, and one of the key things I learned about the Olympics from a very early period was that the players, the athletes that are going to win a gold medal, they don't start planning 4 years before the gold medal comes. They start planning
16.
maybe
Maybe
12 years for the gold medal. So
Yeah.
maybe when the kid is 10 years old or
Yeah.
8 years old, they'll tell you, look, by the time you're 18, the goal is
this is
to win
what you're.
Mm-hmm.
medal at X tournament. And, when you go into those tournaments, it's not a surprise, right? What I find with the NFF is we've got the best generation of players at the moment. And I hate to bring, African football, in between a European conversation. But
Mm-hmm.
we've got to look at the teams like, Austria, your Turkeys, your Georgias, and look at the model they're going after. They're not necessarily star teams, but when you've got a guy who knows what he wants to do, and it doesn't matter if the manager is Jose Mourinho or Pep Guardiola, get the man in and follow through with the plan. And it makes me sad because we've just let Finidi George go, and we haven't still ratified who's going to be the main guy coming in. So it's almost like a hit and miss thing. So when we go to a tournament like the AFCON or make it to the final, everybody's happy about that. But then we might struggle to qualify for the next one. So it's almost pinball.
Yeah, it's like that. It's been like that forever. I remember the last Amado Schreiber
Yeah.
qualifying the national team for the World Cup in France '98 in
Mm.
2002, and he never got to take that team to the World Cup. Every time he qualifies them, they bring a totally different coach.
Person.
Six World Cup 2002 was even a disaster because the old team was disbanded, if you remember, and
Yeah.
a couple of young players were brought in. What magic do you expect them to play? The same thing, the last World Cup, I think 2014, sorry, we qualified for it, had a good Nations Cup in 2013. The players that came to play that World Cup were 60% of them, it was just as if, I don't know, I'm not very sure, but we had a different team. And the only question coming to my mind was that, did money exchange hands to bring these players into the team? What happened to the core of that team that won the Nations Cup? And it's a thing. It's just organization. That's always been the problem that we have. We need to be futuristic. We need to have that long-term goals of planning for major tournaments, winning the Olympics. I mean, if on my LinkedIn page, I advocate about all these things a lot. The sports minister is very active there. Maybe there's going to be a change, but it's because it seems to be very active. But we need to build that culture. Basically, it needs to be not eat and miss and all of that.
Yeah, I agree. Totally agree with you as far as culture. That's the key word. I think you just struck the right word. The culture. We've got to get the right culture around our sports environment, our sports and competitive teams. That's the only way we're going to make progress. It's not going to be on a tournament basis. It's going to be a cultural thing. And once we get that sorted out, I think we can progress further. Sonia, I know your time is very precious, so let's pick up the pace now and wrap up this Euro conversation and get into some of the other stuff that I really want to speak to you about. Let's talk about Portugal, France, and Spain as well, who are all in the same brackets, right? And of course, Germany find themselves in that same bracket as well. Germany take on Denmark, right? And that's might look like an easy game, but Denmark have been, very steady and very sturdy in their performances, right? Spain, Georgia will be an interesting one. I think that Georgia at the moment they're in cloud nine, so whatever happens is a bonus from then on, right?
Exactly.
France and Belgium is the big one from that particular bracket. What do you make of France so far? The star of the tournament, if you ask me, N'Golo Kante, for France. But Kylian Mbappe hasn't quite kicked in due to injuries.
Yes. That a lot of noise was made about Kylian Mbappe coming into this tournament, and I don't know why. I mean, he's a fantastic player. Don't get me wrong.
Okay.
Top 5 in the world and all of that. But that French team is a solid team. N'Golo Kante can win a tournament for you. You may disagree with me, but I told people when these guys won in 2018, I said, everyone shouted, Pogba is a fantastic player in that tournament. I said, no, you take N'Golo out of that team.
You find the loopholes.
That good. So you have some players like that. Mbappe, I don't know. I think the injuries have had an effect. And traditionally, when a lot of noise is made about a player coming into the tournament, they don't usually deliver, except you are a Ronaldo phenomenon. Not the Cristiano Ronaldo, I mean the Brazilian Ronaldo de Lima. There are very few players that can handle that kind of pressure. Maybe we'll grow into it and all of that. But I think France should have enough to take Belgium out. I don't know what has happened to the Belgian team. They don't seem to be able to play together for one reason or the other. I think France should have enough in the tank. Italy, I think Italy should go through. Portugal, they shocked me, but I would want to say, okay, they lost a game that they played most of the players on their bench. But the worrying thing about things like that is that when you don't keep momentum in a tournament, that's
exactly.
Yeah, and I don't see why Cristiano Ronaldo is starting every game. I think the coach is blindly loyal to Cristiano, because if you play the guys on the bench, the guy that plays for Liverpool, and they have 3 forward players that can be very agile. Cristiano Ronaldo can do a job, but I think you starting in that team is not doing well. I think it's stifling the growth of other players and the ability to play together, because they are always looking for him. So I think France will go forward. Italy, I think, will go forward. Portugal, I want to believe they should. Germany, I think, should be able to go forward. So my money at the end of the day, in terms of who is going to win the tournament, I would say, I may be wrong, don't get me right. Portugal, Germany, France for me. That's my prediction.
So
Okay.
let's make it let's make it a bit more practical, right? If Portugal beats Slovenia, they play
Okay.
the winners of France and Belgium. So
Oh,
going by your prediction, I think also that France will take Belgium out. So that's
yeah.
France and Portugal. Who wins that particular game?
France and Portugal.
France.
Oh, you think so?
France. I've seen
Okay.
the play. I've seen how Portugal has been playing so far, and they've not been impressive. Forget the fact that yes, they have Ronaldo, but it's not. That's not enough. Just like he
I
actually said,
think
they have
down.
people on the bench that could actually, step up, but they keep looking
Right.
to him to egg them
To do.
on, and sometimes it's not happening.
Mhm.
Right. Sonia, just give me a prediction on that. France, Portugal, who wins?
France. I would have to admit
France, right?
France.
So,
Yeah.
going by that, France will make it to the semifinals.
Eh,
Germany would take out Denmark by your prediction, and Spain would have enough to take out Georgia.
Yes.
Germany, Spain, who?
Germany,
Mm,
Spain. That's $1 million question. Ah, I think the Spanish would do it. Because
Hmm,
I'm saying this because Germany came to this tournament not expecting a lot.
okay.
And
hmm,
if they get to the semifinal, I think it's going to be a good one, considering what has happened in previous tournaments.
right, right,
So I would say Spain from
right.
the fact of momentum.
Okay.
Okay. Austria, Turkey, who will win that particular game would face off the
Austria.
winners of Romania, Netherlands.
Could you repeat your last question, please?
Romania will take on Netherlands, and Austria will take on Turkey. The winners play each other.
So Austria and Netherlands for me.
Okay. Then who wins that particular game then?
Hmm. I want to go for Netherlands. I've always loved them.
Netherlands.
That's just out of
Yeah.
me loving them, but I would say
Right.
Netherlands.
Yeah. Okay. England, Slovakia, and Switzerland, Italy. I think Italy go through, and I
Yes,
think that England just maybe sneak through. Who wins Italy, England then?
Italy, no question.
Right. Okay, then. We'll have to bring you back for the semifinals then. Let's get into a conversation. Let's take a break now, Joy. Let's come back with a conversation about some club football activities. Manchester United, of course, in the mix as well, with all the big negotiations with Eric Ten Hag. There's a legal side to it as well. Dan Ashworth still on gardening leave. That's why we brought Sonia to unpack what a gardening leave is and why he cannot just influence transfer activities in the summer. We're back in a bit.
All right, Lagos. Got some messages. Probably want to get back in. I'll
Yeah,
take
so let's
them
start off.
before.
So let's start off with the messages. You read the messages, and so now we have about 12 to 13 minutes of
Before we
this
wrap up.
football. Well, yeah, so we can do that. Yeah.
Let's talk about gender bias, relationships, and careers. Let's talk about the woman.
For the record, feminism, by definition, is the belief that men and women should have
It's funny because I actually think that your you could actually like your football talk is actually really good. I thought you would lean away from the football analysis.
I told you I did this with a radio station while I was at Ekiti. It's called
Oh, this
Voice
is
FM. It was the first private station, so we analyze sports all through. Yeah,
wow, wow, wow. Solid actually, very solid.
thank you.
Very, very solid. Yeah.
All right, 41 minutes gone past 7 and final few minutes on Total Football this evening. You can be a part of Total Football by sharing in your thoughts via WhatsApp on 009 440 981. How about you can also call us up on phone lines on 0201 4489 981. But before we get into all that transfer conversation, well, talking about negotiations rather, let's get your messages. And starting off with Bayashola, and Bayashola says, Well, he's asking when will the NPF, when will the, I'm guessing you meant NPFL kick start. Is it NPL?
MPFL. Lee, we just finished. Shola. I'll make the rest first now.
Mashallah doesn't want to hear Euros, so he just wants to, get back into Nigeria's own league. But okay, Mashallah.
Yeah.
I sentiment. I was once in England and someone told me, "Why do you guys follow European football every time?" So I don't blame him.
Yeah.
I'm
I
for
know.
that.
I know,
They
man.
need to rest and recoup energy before they get back into things. All right. Jacob says that he's happy that Ralph Ragnick is doing well at the Euros. He's not called the godfather of modern German football for nothing. Coaches like Loe, Klopp, and Nagelsmann hold him in high regard. Okay. All right. That's actually good. Jerry says it will be a miracle if England actually beat Slovenia because the English team is underperforming. I don't know what is wrong with Jude Bellingham. He is not playing well. Hey.
Another thing I want to say at this point is don't forget that these guys have played incredible amount of football more than ever before.
Already.
And it's they're human beings, they're not machines.
Yes.
Don't come into it maybe a week to play together and you play in different clubs. So getting that
style
going, it's difficult. So I think fans should sometimes
cut them some slack.
Exactly. That's the one.
All right. Okay, so now let's move on up to the nitty-gritty. I'll let you take the reins from here, Yubby.
So yeah, look, it's interesting. Yes. We are in this final, moments of the show. I want us to talk about club football, and especially as the summer transfer window is now fully open, but preseason training doesn't start until the first week of July. I think I've seen Tottenham, resume like camping, but I want to talk about Manchester United, who pretty much almost broke the internet last week when they announced, they were keeping Erik ten Hag as their manager, and he made the cheeky interview to Dutch media that they found out they had the best manager in the house as well. A man they've been chasing for quite some time. In part of the Jim Ratcliffe revolution is Dan Ashworth, and we saw his work with Brighton and Hove Albion, transferred from Brighton to Newcastle, and of course, landed some good players, Alexander Isak and Tonali, Bruno Guimaraes, and ultimately hired Eddie Howe. But United, of course, have gone into Manchester City and gotten Omar Berrada as well, who is the impending CEO in waiting at United. But the one piece of the executive puzzle hasn't quite been filled out, Dan Ashworth. And this is something that I found interesting, that executive role managers or executive role employees also fall into the transfer brackets as well. Now Newcastle are demanding 20 million pounds, right, from Manchester United if they want Dan Ashworth to resume work almost immediately. United are bulging and saying are saying we're not going to pay that amount of money. Newcastle put him on gardening leave and pretty much say you're not going to work for the entire period of your contract, which is for next 9 months. Now, Ashworth has taken the Newcastle organization to court of arbitration for sports, and citing that he was not put on gardening leave, but he was fired. So that means that he can go take another job. I mean, look, in the end, I'm a football person, but I cannot quite untangle the legal side of it. What's all of this about?
Okay, so thank you for having me on this. So what I'm going to say is, to start with, a garden leave is just a transition period between the time you give a notice of resignation at your work and the time you start your next work. So that gardening period is to ensure that you won't work for your current employer, but you will be paid during that period.
Okay.
The most important thing is you cannot work for a competitor. So you find gardening leave in most industries where competition is really key.
Right.
You see it a lot in the technology industry. You see it a lot in a lot of industries, as long as what we are saying is we need to keep confidential information of the business so that you don't give very vital information that helps
along
our.
with you.
And you rightly mentioned coming to Dan Ashworth. This is a guy that probably knows most of the players that Newcastle wants to sign in the next this thing. And there's a likelihood if they make it easy for United, he's going to move with all of that.
Everybody.
And to get, and Brighton and Newcastle, everyone has been saying these guys are getting it right with their recruitment because somebody did a very fantastic job. And it started with the English FA. Don't forget that Dan Ashworth was credited with most of the players that won the under-17 and under-20 World Cup for England. All the Fikayo Tomoris, the Fodens, and all of these guys. So he is well recognized within the industry. And I think Newcastle is just trying to play hardball. So he's playing a technical argument here. What he's saying is that if you place me on a gardening leave, my contract is to expire in 2025. So what Newcastle is saying is that we can keep you on a gardening leave till 2025. However, in football parlance, you know very well that 6 months in football is a long time. So these are dealt with on a case-by-case basis. The question the court will ask, or the arbitration panel will ask, which will be made up of 3 experts. One by, if they go eventually, one will be from Newcastle United, the other will be from Manchester United, and both parties will choose a neutral arbitrator. These people will be knowledgeable in football business, and they'll probably have some sort of arbitration or legal background or industry
Insights on
practice.
that one.
Yes. What he's saying majorly is that they technically fired him. 18 months from the facts that I got, what Newcastle is actually saying is that we can keep this guy from working till 2025. So is either you pay 20 million pounds now, and Man United is saying 2.5 million pounds. In real essence, I don't think any other than Potter who Chelsea paid 22 million pounds for. Nobody, no club has ever paid that high, even for a coach, not to talk of a sports director. So I think Newcastle is just trying to flex their muscle and say, right now we are part of the big boys. You can't just come and take anything that belongs to us. If you want it, you have to get it. But at the same time, the 1.5 year period gardening leave that Newcastle is given is excessive. And I don't believe it will fly when it comes to arbitration. So what most likely would happen is Man United may probably have to pay more than the 2.5 million pounds. And a very interesting fact I need to bring in at this point was all these things started because Dan Ashworth himself, there was a gap from him. So what he did was his email to the Barada guy from Man United who is coming. And that's another problem. And because he's not supposed to be working for Man United yet. And he sent an email to his Newcastle one, and the Newcastle found out about it, which means he's in breach. So Newcastle basically are saying now that you're in breach of your gardening leave terms. But at the end of the day, I see a compromise. Maybe United will have to pay more than 2.5 million pounds, but it's totally ridiculous to expect him to wait 18 months before he can make that move.
That's interesting because nowadays I have a phone that has 3 email addresses on it, so I've got to select and deselect. So I'm very careful nowadays to make sure I don't send emails
the
with
wrong
with the wrong emails. So a bit of lesson.
All these things happen. You remember when Arteta was going to move to City, and now the media got the whole thing. They were able to, I think, because of his relationship with Guardiola, they kind of tampered everything down. But now Newcastle wants to play hardball, unfortunately.
Very interesting. I totally love the way you broke it down, and I totally now understand a bit better. I think the key thing there is sensitive information as to competition. I think that's the most important thing because I never, in all the articles I've read, I haven't quite stumbled on that part, and it's good to have that insight. I want to pick up the pace and talk about the Premier League. Still a court case. Man City strapping up and saying, you know what, we're tired of being the scapegoats. We're going to take you guys to court, and let's spend our day in court. Let's have our day in court, and if the house burns down, then we burn down with it. Is that a meteor, so to speak, that's about to hit the Premier League, and can that unsettle what is such a great product? Because Jim Ratcliffe has said as well that the PSR, the way it is, the rules is almost trying to fix what's not broken. What do you make of that?
Uh, I don't think I totally agree with him. That's Jim Ratcliffe. But there's a reason these rules were there. What we are trying to achieve here is the competitive balance. Remember, there was a time that in Spain it was just Real Madrid, even till now, Real Madrid and Barcelona. You can close your eyes and say any of those two teams will win the league. Premiership, we would say, is more competitive, but you can't really say straight away one team will win. So what the um, profit and sustainability rule is essentially that you shouldn't spend more than what you earn. And the whole fight about what Man City is doing is that you have what you call the associated term. I think it has to do with associated contracts. So if you're a sponsor, so Etihad and Manchester City, for instance, Etihad sponsors Manchester City, and let's say they're sponsoring Manchester City for naming rights for £100 million. What the Premiership wants to find out is that the fair market value? If Etihad is sponsor Arsenal, which is not related
they
to
pay that amount of money. Yeah,
exactly. So what a lot of Premiership teams are saying is that the sponsorship that is coming from the Abu Dhabi group that sponsors City always is inflated. That is the key term. It is inflated such that Man City are getting more money than they should. And remember that they were once banned by UEFA, but that was overturned. That ban was overturned on a technical ground, not because City did not commit those offenses. It was only overturned because most of those offenses were committed 5 years before that period. And by the rules, you cannot try, by the rules that that governs the sustainability rule, you can't try offenses that have been 5 years over. So what City
it's time barred, basically.
Yes, it's time bad. So what City is trying to do, it's very funny, and it's about strategy. What they're trying to do is like they've signed. So Premiership teams, they come together to sign these agreements. 18 signed in favor, 2 signed against.
Yeah.
But they've not mentioned the teams that signed against. And I'm not sure Man City was one of the teams that signed against it. So they signed to say that this is the profit ratio, this is the way we want contracts to come in, and everybody should be very open with these contracts. All of a sudden, everyone is accusing them that you've always inflated contracts, which means you have an unfair advantage in terms financially over other teams. But now, something very key happened. Last year or 2 years ago, you remember the Super League debacle in Europe, right? Madrid. So what happened was, I've always said this in most of my legal write-ups about football, that UEFA and FIFA, they are in a monopoly of controlling football. And they also control the business. They control the profits. So because they control it, there's this theory in European sports law, which is called the specificity of sports. Essentially, you're saying sport is different from other businesses and other rules should apply. And that theory was allowed a lot in Europe until FIFA started falling apart with all those corruption scandals. Then everyone was asking, shouldn't football be regulated like aviation, like every other business? Why is it different? And the European Court came out to say, just last year in 2023, European Court of Justice said that they mentioned that the Super League that FIFA and UEFA do not have the right to ban the Super League. Yes. So for the first time, FIFA and UEFA's monopoly has been broken. But what they have going for them is that these associations still want to play within the rules that UEFA and FIFA have set. But
Right.
what that court did not say was that court did not say they could actually establish the European Super League. But
Okay.
Yes, sir.
what you cannot ban it outrightly without giving more reasons. So coming back to City, what City is just saying is that based on UK competition law, that the Premiership teams are abusing UK competition laws, because UK competition laws ordinarily should allow them to have fair contracts that they can determine by themselves. But the Premiership teams are arguing that, this is different. You guys agree to
giving
this.
you an unfair advantage.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
So you're part of this. We agree to it. So why are you appropriating and reprobating at the same time?
Yes.
So
Yeah.
essentially, Manchester City is just feeding off that European Court of Justice judgment over Super League, which says that an association does not necessarily have the monopoly over how a football club should run. And why they are doing this is interesting. I think they've seen that the possibility of them winning that case is very low.
Is very high.
Very slim.
Yeah, so they want to burn the whole house down.
Yeah.
So that because
I think I like the approach. It's a bit I mean, I'm not the expert here, but it's a bit deflective, if you like.
Exactly. So they're trying to, if they win, what it means is that the whole product of the Premiership will change. Everybody will have to source for money whichever way they want, and it's going to make more. It's going to make more prevalent.
All right.
Totally like it. I totally have more insights on that. Hopefully, our listeners as well learn a thing or two, because we've got some of the most business, savvy listeners as well. Anyway, do we have any messages, Joy? I think we've spent a lot of time, so we've got to leave it there. Sonia, I want to thank you very much indeed for taking out of your time to speak to us on all these matters. And I've got to say, very impressed with your punditry as well. We knew you were a legal expert, but we weren't quite sure about the punditry, but good to have you, and hopefully you can talk to us before the Euros finishes as well.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me. Nice to meet you, everyone. Nice to meet you.
Then.
Joy,
I'm going to leave it there. I'll see you on Saturday.
Okie doke.
Bye.
Thank you so much, guys, for joining in.